My dear brothers and sisters, Jesus tells us that I came to cast fire. I have come to bring division. Division even in our own family. When we look at our life, sometimes it's true. The greatest craving man have is for survival, living longer. And sometimes death is considered to be greatest evil in the world because there is no permanency of life. One day we have to die. And so what do? Right from the birth, we try to grow. We are given the best education possible, the best food possible we are given. And we assure better job, look forward towards better home, facilities, and so on. So all of us want to survive, all of us want to live longer in the best way possible. So in all these things, we don't even sometimes consider our own family members. And that is the very ego all of us have. Therefore, Jesus says we need to fight against not only just family members, but even to ourselves. Fight against our ego. We do everything in order to assure ourselves a better life. However, we are not trying to be closer to Jesus. We are not maturing ourselves in our spirituality. Long back, before 90s, a person was considered to be better if he is very intelligent. And so people were measured based on their intelligence. After 90s, we were talking about psychology. And so psychological maturity, emotional quotients was the main guideline principle to measure a person. But now lately, we are talking about psycho-spiritual maturity. And so what does this psycho-spiritual maturity says? It says every opportunity is given to me for my growth and for my well-being. Every moment is an opportunity for me to grow. Rather than thinking about right and wrong, I need to grow. I need to grab the opportunity to excel myself in every way possible. So my dear brothers and sisters, in the gospel acclamation we heard, Jesus is the good shepherd. We hear his voice and we follow him. And so following is a process of getting matured in our spirituality, getting matured in our psychological growth. In the first reading, we heard about Jeremiah. Jeremiah who was standing for God and his message. He was a prophet of God, and then he was prophesying to the Israelites. The Babylonian king and the rulers were coming to attack Israel. And so the voice of the Lord came to Israel through prophet Jeremiah that they should not fight against Babylonians, rather they submit to the Babylonian power so that the city can be saved. However, his message was not taken into consideration. They thought Jeremiah was standing against the Israel, against king and the rulers. The Babylonians came, they fought. However, the temple was destroyed and the city was getting destroyed. And again, the rulers and the kings decided to run away from Israel. Again, prophet Jeremiah spoke to them and told them to stay back in the city, submit themselves to Babylonian king, and then they will be saved and the city will be saved. However, the people were angry and they dragged Jeremiah out of the city and then put him in a well to die. So Jeremiah was standing for truth. He was standing for God. He was giving the message of God. The people and the rulers knew about it. However, they did not listen to him. The whole country, his own people, turned against Jeremiah. So, my dear brothers and sisters, when we look forward for our spiritual growth, when we look forward for going closer to Jesus, embrace the cross, there will be surely opposition. Even our own father and mother may be against us. Even our own kith and kin will be against us. Even our own self, our own ego will be against us. So, my dear brothers and sisters, we need to fight, we need to win over. And in this regard, the greatest enemy is myself, that I need to overcome all the temptations that come in my life. Therefore, in the second reading, letter to the Hebrews very clearly says, do away with sin. First step for getting mature. And then secondly, let us not lose the sight of Christ, sight of Jesus. Always be in the presence of God. And that is a calling to be holy, a calling to be matured in our spiritual life. Do not lose the sight of Christ. Why do we fall into temptation? Why do we cling on to evil? Because very often we focus on the evil. Very often we focus even to overcome that. We don't focus on Christ. We don't focus on love. We don't focus on peace. Thereby we falter. So, my dear brothers and sisters, we need to wage war against all this ego that is within ourselves. Therefore, the reading's last sentence is very beautiful. It says, have you resisted sin to the point of shedding blood? So even to the last drop of our blood, we need to resist evil, resist ego, and overcome that. When we look at the life of Jesus, it was a constant struggle in his life. Cousin Sakib, in his book, The Last Temptation of Jesus, very beautifully pictures the human life of Jesus. If he had not said, yes to God the Father and His will, surely he would have had a better life. Even sometimes, as a fully human being, Jesus was considering himself to be unworthy to save humanity, unworthy to stand for God, unworthy to do the will of the Father in heaven. A great temptation Jesus was undergoing even at the last moment of his life. But on the cross, Jesus submitted himself to God the Father. Let thy will be done. He overcomes all these human weaknesses, all these temptations with love. Love for even enemies, love for all human beings. And he accomplishes the greatest mission entrusted to Jesus. So, my dear brothers and sisters, our life is a spiritual war against ourselves, our own evil tendencies, inclinations, habitual sins, and so on it goes. We need to overcome, we need to win over, we need to progress in our spiritual life. Now, right from the beginning of our baptism, we are fed with so much of knowledge about Christ. Now, let us examine and see, have we read the Bible totally and fully? Have we taken a step to love our enemies? Have we taken step to forgive our own brothers and sisters who have hurt us? Very often we have failed. So, which means we are not focusing on Christ. So, my dear brothers and sisters, in this spiritual war, prayer is the weapon, love is the weapon, peace is the weapon. We need to mature in our prayer life. We need to mature in our love for one another, even loving our own self, loving our own life partners, even forgiving others. And there comes our spiritual progress. And ultimately, this leads to our eternal life. So, my dear brothers and sisters, let us begin and let us become aware that we need to grow in our spirituality, in our interpersonal relationship, grow in love, loving our enemies, grow in forgiving others, and with St. Paul, we need to say, it's not I, it is Christ who lives in me.